Welcome back to the You Not Me podcast with Chris Behrmann. I'm your host, Jared Odenbeck. Today's episode, it's quite rare that we get to do a recording in person, so thanks for hosting, Chris. But today's episode is going to talk about how to transform your life. Now, before you start rolling your eyes and thinking that this is just some cliche self-help stuff, one of the reasons we're creating this episode, Chris, is because so much of the self-help industry, whether it's books, podcasts, social media, has a lot of great advice, a lot of really actionable items, but is really missing the mark ultimately right from the start. And so this episode today is really just going to focus on the most critical step before you work on any personal transformation, any kind of personal growth. And that, Chris, is what?
It's identifying where you are right now and understanding from your past, just what do you need to work through? What mistakes have you made? What have other people done to you? There are so many things to go through, but it's, going from A to B is not as easy as saying, I'm just going to figure out how to get to B. You need to understand where A is first and understanding where in your life you actually are. How did you get there? What's happened? And then really walking through all of that to figure out what direction you need to go. If you want to get to New York and you're in Minnesota, you obviously want to go east. But if you are in Florida, you want to go north. So if you just happen to say, well, I'm just going to go to New York and I just head out in one direction. If you're in Florida and you decide to go west or east, you're going to hit the ocean. So it's understanding you need to go north. And what is that North Star? What is it that you're really trying to hit, that you're making sure that you're putting the steps in to identify where you are first, to make sure when you launch out that you're going to go in the direction you want to actually end up ultimately.
Absolutely. And in preparation for this episode, Chris, you did a little bit of research just in terms of, what does the internet say? What does AI say? If you just put in how to transform your life, what were some of the things that you found?
Yeah, and there's some decent content about, setting goals and making sure that, you're understanding why you want to get somewhere, which is all fantastic. But none of it talked about, well, where are you right now? And what do you need to deal with from the past? What things internally? Because, often, again, we focus on the exterior. We don't focus on the interior. But if we just think about where are we going now? I want to go here. So many kids that are athletes that are, whether middle school, high school, they say, I want to be a pro. That's great. But if you don't understand what you need to do to make sure you get in there, where are you right now? Are you even remotely close to hitting that pro mark? And if all you do is focus on, say, your sport, but you basically stop with your academics because you're like, I just want to play pro, but you're nowhere close to being able to play pro, that's a problem. And the same thing with just any aspect of life is just making sure you're honest with yourself and you're understanding kind of where you are. And you're working through the things that are maybe holding you back from going forward in the first place. Because you may have an awesome goal and you may actually have all the giftings to do it. But if there's a ball and chain that's holding you back, whether it's your past that someone hurt you or you've made bad decisions or just there are things that keep popping up in your life that are destroying your relationships. If it's, again, self-allegiance, if it's selfishness and all that stuff, and you want to go someplace and do something amazing, but if that keeps springing up, that's actually going to hurt you in the long run and prevent you from even getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that so spot on what you said just about, the young athlete who wants to be a pro or a person who has some ambitious goal, but maybe they, need to back up 10 steps and first do the inner work to heal whatever's in their past or whatever's currently plaguing them in the present. And I think that so many people skip that step and, you can waste so much time. If you think of, the young athlete, the thousands of young athletes in the US every year who are I want to be a pro. And it's great to have a dream. It's great to have a goal and an ambition. You don't want to discourage that in any way, but how many kids go, I want to be a pro because my dad told me or my coach told me or whatever. And they throw away, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of their life, or maybe they should have said, well, I want to work in business, or I want to be a firefighter, or I want to do this. And obviously it's hard to know at a young age, but just even taking the time, like you said, to really look around and go, what are my giftings? Where am I at in life? Does this goal really align with my identity? And does it align with how I want to live my life and how I want to spend my years and all this stuff? And I think that unfortunately, so many people even will reach their goals and then they'll go, oh crap, this wasn't at all what I thought it was going to be. I really shouldn't have been a doctor. I shouldn't have done med school. Like, I really, really screwed this up. Now I have to go all the way back and backtrack. And whether it's, start over education or, I put all this money into something or whatever it might be. So, what are maybe like some practical steps for the person who wants to start well on the right foot? They have goals. They want to transform their life. They want to do great things. This initial step that you've been talking about, what are some practical ways that a person can even begin to take that step?
Yeah, I think, one of the things is you need to honestly ask yourself, do I really want to get to whatever it is I'm thinking about? And do I really want to transform my life? Because there are a lot of people that say, even just look at like trying to lose weight, trying to get fit or whatever. They say, I want to lose 40 pounds, or I want to be able to run a marathon, or whatever it is. But are you willing to say no when it's 10 o'clock at night and you open the freezer and there's some ice cream staring at you? There are some people who are like, well, I don't want to give up my ice cream. Well, it's just like, how badly do you want whatever it is that you're doing? Again, whether it's a great marriage, whether it's a job, whether it's sports, college, you name it, being a great parent. I want to have a great relationship with my kids. Well, then are you willing to sacrifice maybe some of your hobbies to spend time with your kids when they're young, instead of just working all the time and doing your hobbies, and then you aspire to make tons of money, retire when you're 50, but then when you're 50 your kids don't even want to hang out with you because there's zero relationship with them. So again, like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because there are a lot of times people say that I want to get here, but I don't, if they're really honest, they don't want to sacrifice. But again, it goes back to, is what you're trying to get to worthy? Is it really something that you truly want to be a part?
So I think I'm hearing two things from you there. The first one is just that you have to have an honest evaluation from yourself. The second being that you have to really be honest about the level of sacrifice and commitment that you have in order to reach that goal. And I think that there's really one solution in my mind, from a you, not me perspective, in terms of how you can answer both of those questions, and that's really relationship. I think so many people are so biased, myself included, yourself included, when they look at their own lives. It's so easy to have blind spots and to just miss things when we go to evaluate ourselves. I think that that's what makes, coaches in sport such a powerful tool for athletes, is that, they can look at the athlete and go, hey, you are only seeing what you do every single day from your own perspective. You don't see like the big bird's eye picture. We wrote a recent newsletter about the value of a caddy in golf.
Yep.
They're seeing all the conditions, the players thinking about their score and the last shot, and the caddy kind of can zoom out and give that valuable perspective. But both of those kinds of roles can also give that unique accountability and motivation and encouragement. So maybe you do want to lose, 40 pounds or whatever, and you don't want to do, what is it, GL1P or whatever it's called, or
Yeah.
you want to do it the old fashioned way, which you should. So let's say you want to lose weight, and ice cream is, maybe the reason standing in the way of that. You train during the day, but then you love just shoveling down a pint at night. Like,
Right.
we've all been there. And maybe you need someone to check in and text you at 10 o'clock at night and go, hey, eat a piece of fruit. Or, hey, did you buy ice cream at the grocery store this week? And I just think that, having that relationship is so valuable for not only seeing your blind spots, seeing the areas where you go, hey, realistically, I don't think that goal makes sense for you. I think that you should maybe reroute and go in this direction instead. Or, again, just providing that directional encouragement for people to say, hey, eat a piece of fruit if you want to lose weight. Or, hey, did you go to the gym? Or, hey, even I'll go to the gym with you. So I think that just a super, super key way, if people really want to get off on the right foot, is just, do you have like real relationship in your life? Something else that you had brought up is just, kind of aiming yourself in the right direction. And obviously you mentioned that comes from knowing where you are now, which we've talked about. How can I work on, if I'm someone who has a goal and, I want to make sure I'm aiming for the right thing, how can I go about doing that?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing first and foremost is, obviously, after you've done the work, to look deeply and honestly, and actually even to go back one more thing, when you talk about those shortcuts, like, getting a shot to help you lose weight. And the problem is like, okay, you might lose weight. But once you lose weight, then what? Have you put in the good habits to actually sustain you then moving forward, or do you just put all the weight back on because you just don't have good habits? And that's where, again, going back to that honest reflection upon who you are and what you've done, and are you really willing to sacrifice whatever it is that you're saying you want to do, that you're actually worthy, worthy of the sacrifice? Because some things, maybe they aren't worth it, and it's okay, and that's fine to just say, you know what, actually, that's not worth me giving up this. Like, there are some people, like, there are times in the past that I've turned down promotions because I said, I, yes, would love that job, but if I take that job and I'm traveling 3 to 4 days a week, that doesn't allow me to be the husband or the father I want to be. And so that goal is not worthy of the sacrifice of my family. And so didn't make as much money, didn't get further along, but at the same time, I'm so thankful. And I look at my relationships now with my boys, with my wife, and if I had not said no to that, would they be in the same place? And I can honestly say probably not, because unfortunately, when we're not connected on a regular basis, I mean, we're seeing it with our phones, when we're disconnected, when it's just, the relational piece is not there, it's a loss. And so back to your question is, it's first and foremost, it's identifying, where do I want to go? Is that a worthy place? So you have to identify where that is. The second is what do I want to become? And that's basically looking at the aspiration. What am I aspiring to do, and who am I aspiring to become when I do that? And then the third thing is the inspiration. Why do I want to get there? What is my inspiration for doing that? Like, what is it really going to do for my life and for others? And then really the final question to ask is about impact, and is, once I get there, how is it going to help others, and how is it going to help me? What is the impact going to be once I get to that place? And when you can get a clear answer to all four of those questions, identification, aspiration, inspiration, and impact, if you can answer all those clearly and you can set that out for yourself, that's going to really be so helpful in helping you get there, because you're going to have windy roads. You're going to sometimes get off course. And the thing is do you have something that's going to bring you back a few degrees back to the direction you want to go, versus you veered off? Because again, things happen, circumstances happen. We make bad decisions that maybe take us off course, but can we get oriented back to where we want to go? And all those four things, identification, aspiration, inspiration, and impact, if we remember what those four things are, that'll really help us get there.
Yeah, let's maybe just go one by one and run through each of those four categories if you want to. So the first one, identification. Talk through some of the key points there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, and this is the hard thing, especially for younger people, because I remember sitting next to a 21-year-old that he was about to graduate college, and was just talking about, just he's had some anxiety because he doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up yet. And I tried to reassure him, like, look, there are people that are 30, 40, 50 years old that still don't know really what they want to be. The biggest thing is that you identify, where do you want to go? Like, what are the next steps in growth of your life as a human, as a person, as, again, if you're married, as a spouse, as a parent, identify those things. Where do you want to go? Because again, it's so often we just say this just blanket. I want to be a millionaire by X date. I want to be a pro. I want to be, and it's, again, all these things that, sure, they're fine, but if we don't really understand where we want to go and like crystallize what that looks like, it's hard to really even figure out how to get there, because then there's so many avenues to get there. What's the right one to take?
Absolutely, and I think that one of the key distinctions that really gets lost in all of this, how to transform your life, how to be the best you, all this is, people have such self-focused goals, which we'll get to at the end, talking about impact. And really, one of the foundational issues is that people are asking the wrong question, in my opinion, is people are asking, what do I want to be, instead of who do I want to be? And I think that so many times people might get what they want, but they totally compromise in terms of their relationships, how do they treat other people, and the what becomes the end all be all, and they really lose everything of meaning otherwise. So you were going to go into aspiration as the next point. What are some of the big rocks there?
Yeah, I mean, I think even back to your point about aspiration is the whole point of You Not Me is we're trying to help simplify relationships so that you can have a very quick and easy way to identify where you are in the midst of a relationship, of a conversation, a decision process. But back to who you want to become is we want people to be consistent in who they are, not just at work, I'm this way, at home, I'm this way, with my friends, I'm this way. That's really hard because then you're constantly trying to think like, okay, what should I say so people like think well of me or like me, but then that's almost like a vote against who you are as a person. And that's basically you saying, I don't like who I am all the time. And because I'm doing things so that people in this sphere like me, and then I act differently in this sphere, so these people like me in these sphere. And that's just a terrible way to live when you think about the fact that, again, having peace with who you are and what you want to become. And so back to the who is making sure that who you want to be, that you're really at peace with that decision and that you don't compromise at work. Maybe at home, you're this amazing, awesome person, but you go to work and you become this totally different person and you're almost like a tyrant. I mean, sadly, there are people that I know, and I spoke to friends, and they work at the same company, and I mentioned, oh, do you know so and so? And they're like, oh, and they say something really negative that I'm shocked to hear because I know this person in a different setting. I don't work with them or for them, and they're amazing people, but at the workplace, they're totally different. And it's a hard way to live, but also at the same time, it's so not fun to keep bouncing around because also inside, if we're honest, again, back to being honest with who you are, there's this internal war that's going on. We have a battle inside, we have a battle externally that we're fighting all the time. And who's winning in that? And if you're letting one side win here, but one side win here, why don't you, if you really believe that this way is the right way to live, why don't you do that everywhere?
Right.
Because then, if nothing else, you're pleasing yourself with who you really want to be and what the overarching goal is as far as how you want to live your life. And you're not just basically trying to appease people, because there are people that will, I mean, you look at sports fans. I mean, there are true fans that will live and die by their team and they will support them winning or losing, even though they're miserable when they're losing. But at the same time, there are tons of people that will love you and cheer your name in 1 minute, and then the very next they're calling for you to be, again, whether it's a manager being, fired or sacked, or if you're in sales, you might be hero 1 year, next year quotas change and you're a zero all of a sudden, and then they fire you. I mean, that was Jack Welch's way: is fire the bottom 10 or 15% of your sales of your people every year. And it's like, that's 1 year does not determine that. But again, if you're trying to appease people that are so fickle anyway, you need to really understand what you want to become and who you want to become, most importantly, and know who you are and whose you are.
Yeah, it actually reminds me, this is just probably a stupid anecdote, but it's like, it reminds me of Andrew Huberman and his like dating catastrophe that he had, where it's like, you were mentioning, you got these different personas, whether it's you act one way at home and then, in the workplace another way. And then with your guy friends or your girlfriends, you act a different way. And with your kids, you act another way. And, in sports, you act a different way. And I think like we've all seen like sports fans who it's just like, local man arrested because of like stupid decision that he made on game day or whatever, or like saying obscenities to players or fans, like whatever, where you're like, this was like a normal community guy who just didn't have a real grip on like who he really was, or just living that consistently. So it's like, it's like with Andrew Huberman, it's like, you can keep up all these different personalities, or in his case, like all these different dating relationships. But at some point, like you're going to get mixed up and you're going to text, Amy instead of Mia or whatever, or like, your relationships or your personas are just going to come crumbling down on you. Like, maybe that, tyrant, work personality after a long day at work, you carry that home into your home life. And, that happens in exchange with your kids, and, then you've blown it there. So it's not a viable way to live by any means.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, I've seen it play out. And then too, I mean, there are people that they act one way when they're, say, a salesperson, and they get promoted into management and they become a totally different person. And it's never good to be inconsistent, because then people have no idea what to expect from you on a regular basis.
So if we move into inspiration, Chris, hit maybe a couple of the key points there.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to inspiration. It's why do you want to get to that place? There's that word formula that we talk about sometimes, where it's, we all have urges and actions. We all want things. We have desires. We all, in this day and age, we have instant gratification. We want it now. If I have to wait for 5 seconds for my phone to load, it drives me nuts, or 10 seconds or whatever it is. And you want things right away. But if you don't have disciplined thought, if you haven't like walked through, if I do achieve this, what are the steps that are going to happen afterwards? If you haven't walked through that, then the answer is no, stop, like don't do it. But on the same way, if you have the same urges and actions, we still have the same instant gratification that we all want things sooner than, we don't want to wait. We don't have patience anymore. So we want it right away. But if we do have disciplined thought to where we've thought through, okay, if I get this, then these things are going to happen, or this is what it's going to mean for, it's going to be so much better because of XYZ, then go do it. Absolutely. But if you haven't thought about the ripple effects of what's going to happen, then and what that means for your life, again, back to the scenario of me saying no to a promotion. Like, I thought through it, and it was not going to allow me to be who I wanted to be as a husband and father. So I said no. I didn't do it. And I think that's the thing, is just thinking through what are the actual outcomes that are going to happen when you do, when you do achieve that thing.
Right. If we're going to close now just on these 4 points, impact. This is probably the one I would say that's considered least when people go and they, talk about setting goals. I think people think a lot about their personal impact. How is this going to fulfill my desires, or, gratify all the ambition that I have, and really give me, what I want in terms of the fulfillment of my dream. But very few people really take the time to think, how might me getting this, thing that I really want end up benefiting other people outside of myself? So how can people maybe take some time to think about that?
Yeah, I think again, back to, I mean, me. I mean, the whole point is that you actually think about other people before just yourself. And so if you think about, if I get X, how is it going to impact my family? How is it going to impact, my community? How is it going to impact my workplace? How is it going to impact all these, these things? Again, back to the ripple effect. And the hope is it's going to make people better. Again, I mean, even if you talk about pro sports, and the pro life is hard. And unfortunately, all these people say, I want to play pro because they see these glory stories. They see amazing things and money and, press and, status and everything else. But it's really hard. I mean, knowing and talking with players that struggle to make the roster, struggle to start, struggle to stay healthy. It's really, really hard, not just physically but emotionally. And it's not that people shouldn't want to be pros, but there is something that comes with that. And so again, back to like, why are you doing it? Well, hopefully it's you're gifted at it. Hopefully you see it as a passion that you love to do. Hopefully it's going to do good things for you, your family, whatever. But while you're there, what's the impact you're having on your teammates? What's the impact you're having on your community? We see players, and there are people that have started amazing foundations, amazing nonprofits to help really improve their communities. And that's awesome. So like that's a fantastic use of being a pro. It's not just about the money, it's not just about the fame, but how can you use that to actually help other people, to make the team better, to make your community better, and to really change the life. I mean, I look at these college teams, and some of them, they're in small college towns. And my goodness, I mean, some do an amazing job, but my goodness, what an impact you could have if you really, on a consistent basis, had your players in the community doing things. Even with the pros. I mean, I've gone to speak to high school youth and different groups. I mean, I'm just a Joe Schmo coming in trying to love on them and point them in a better direction. But if they had, a pro football player, basketball, soccer, whatever the sport is, come in and talk, all of a sudden those kids sit up straighter and they're more excited, and the impact they can have by that little bit of time is amazing if people would just do it more. And there are some that do it amazingly well. And so thank you for all those people that do put a great amount of effort into making their community, but their own teammates. I mean, you see players that have these up and downs, and the ones that have the least of those are the ones that have players around them to encourage them when they do have a mistake or struggle, or a coach that can lift somebody's spirits and build confidence in them when they've made a mistake, instead of just crushing them and then all of a sudden just reducing their confidence even more, and then they're just going to keep making more mistakes. And so again, it goes back to like, what's the impact you're going to have once you get to that place that you're aiming for?
Yeah, and it made me think of NFL quarterback Kirk Cousins. You know, he's said on record
Yep.
before, like, you know, he has these ambitions of, you know, I want to be a Super Bowl winning
Yep.
quarterback. I want to play in the NFL. I want to, you know, be a starter and, you know, hit all these, you know, statistical marks and all this stuff. But he said, at the end of the day, like, if I get all that stuff and the guys that I played with, if someone asked them, you know, 10 or 15 years down the line, hey, how was that Cousins guy that you played with? How was he? And they're like, oh man, he just cared about himself. Like, he was totally fake. Like, said one thing in public in the media, and then was just totally different in private in the locker room. Like, didn't care about guys. You know, just bad mouthing people all the time. He said, then it'd be a total failure for me, no matter what I get, whether I win the Super Bowl or, you know, am MVP in the league, whatever it is. Waste of time, because the real influence and the real thing that matters is like, what did you do for the guys around you? Like, did you lift them
Yep.
up? Did you encourage them? Did you being on a certain team or in a certain corporation or in a school or in the community, did that, in a family even, did that make the other people around you better?
Yeah.
You know, you always say, like, is the boat better because you're on it? So I think that, you know, when we talk about true impact, like, at the end of the day, like, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, and you know, so many people get wrapped up in their status. Like, well, I'm not a starter, so I can't speak into the starters. I'm just a player. I can't speak into my coach, or I just work at a company. I can't speak into my manager or the CEO or whatever. Or I'm just you know, someone's child. I can't speak into my parents, and it's totally wrong. Like, again, it goes back to your heart and why you're doing all of this and how you do it. And again, I've had my boys call me out and say that something I did wasn't done in the right way or the right tone or whatever it is. And one of the biggest keys to all of this is having a humble heart and truly wanting to do the right thing, but also wanting to grow and to learn and to, I mean, I want people, you know, it's not fun to receive criticism.
Right.
And I mean, even just this past weekend, my wife said something to me, and for a second, it was not fun. But if I really thought about it, which I did, I'm very thankful she said something, because something that I said didn't come across the right way, and I was totally not meaning to be that way. And that allowed me to just introspectively think about, well, okay, how am I, you know, how am I saying everything? And even though I try to do it the right way, I still fall short. She has grace for me, thankfully. But again, it doesn't matter if you're a 13-year-old kid, an 18-year-old kid, and you love your parents and that you see them making bad decisions, and it's okay to lovingly say something and speak the truth into them and to help hold them accountable because you love them and you want what's best for them. Same as, again, whether it's a coach and a player to a player, a player to a coach, someone in the workplace, I mean, a student to a teacher. Like, I tell all my boys, look, make sure that you build a relationship with your teachers. Don't just sit there and listen and try to get a grade and leave on. That's, in some ways, that's kind of selfish. It's at least self-serving because you're just focused on you know, getting material, digesting it, outputting the data and getting a grade and moving on. Why not, while you're in the midst of it, help your classmates if you see someone that's struggling? If, you know, get to know your teacher, talk to them, ask them about their family. Don't just use them to obtain information and to get a grade, but actually, like, really care, because that's what makes life more fun, is when you look at the people all around you and you say, I really care about you. So therefore, I'm not just going to do the minimal and get the transactional thing. I'm going to actually do the transformational thing that's really rare these days. I'm going to ask you questions about you. I'm going to try to get to know you. I want to actually see how I can help you. Is there anything that you're struggling with, that whether it's, you know, I can be I have resources that I can help you, or I can be praying for you, or I can, serve you in some way. And it's like those are that's what makes life truly fun, is how can you see the need around you while you're in the same time learning and growing. And again, it goes back to just having a humble heart, being grateful for what you have, and the day that you have and the people that are in front of you, and making the most of it. I think one of the, other great kind of thing to think about is just seeking out other people, to help you along the journey. And I think one of the big things is, it's kind of like, if you think of like a physical therapist, if you go see a physical therapist, sometimes it's because something is wrong first and foremost, and so you're wanting to get something corrected. So they'll run you through some movements to kind of see how you move. Is there something wrong? I mean, is there something that's limiting? Are you super tight? Is it maybe just the way you walk is causing, or the way you run? You need different shoes. That's what's causing injuries. But also sometimes you need a physical therapist to also put you through, put you on a plan to kind of help you grow and be positive and encouraging. And just like there are physical therapists that, if a patient is in the hospital and the patient is laying there, they don't want to do anything because they don't feel great. The physical therapist doesn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't feel great today, so okay, I'll just let you be. I'll come back tomorrow." They actually say, "Oh, no, that's great. Let's okay, grab your legs and let's move them here and let's get you up and let's." And so they're a positive influence. They're encouraging. They're not allowing you to, whether it's to be lazy, to to just be soft in some ways, because a lot of times, if we're honest, we don't like hard things. If you can learn to enjoy hard things, it's such a blessing, because obviously going through the hard times is going to make you stronger, but also it's going to teach you patience. It's going to teach you how to continue to not only persevere, but then to endure. And then as you continue to persevere while it's hard, you build endurance and you get stronger and stronger. I just went and saw a PT the other day about just a pain in my shoulder, and she said, "Okay, here's some exercises. I want you to do them for 2 weeks, and I want you to come back and see me." And so I have a regimen to do, and she was awesome. She was fantastic. And so I'm going to diligently do those. And the hope is that's going to take me in a better direction. And so that's the same thing with finding people, in your life alongside of you, that are going to speak the truth into you, even when it's hard. They're going to ask you to do something that maybe isn't fun, but it's going to heal you, or it's going to actually get you stronger. And, and they're going to be along with you for the ride. So that's why, again, back to you need people around you. I've heard somebody say before, friends are like elevators. They can either take you up or they can take you down. And so it's surrounding yourself with great people, that really love you and care about you, so that you know that there's a trust, there's a care, and they want you to succeed and be better. And hopefully the same is, you feel that way for them as well. And what a blessing that is to have those kinds of people around you.
Yeah, Chris, and we spent a lot of time today talking about the first step that most people miss really in this conversation of how to transform your life. But maybe just to conclude, what are, say, three things that people can keep in mind if they're like, all right, I know where I'm at, I know where I want to go, but how do I bridge the gap between those, two places?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, first step, identifying where you are. The next three things I would say is just having an intentional plan, as far as what you want to do, and whether it's, say, for example, if you want to get in shape, don't just say, well, I want to work out 3 times a week. Well, that's a great goal, but once you show up to the gym, do you have an intentional plan that, each day? Again, if you go to the gym, that's awesome. That's a great first step. Yes.
Yeah, it's a win.
That's awesome. If you haven't been going to the gym, that's fantastic. But once you get there, the most effective use of your time is having a plan, set up, as far as, again, are there certain body parts you want to hit? Are there a certain number of sets, certain number of reps? Are you trying to build endurance? You're trying to build strength and muscle? Are you trying, what are you trying to do? But also even like recovery, all those things are important. So same thing, if you have a goal, you need to have a stepwise, daily actionable plan, and making sure, just kind of like even with, getting this whole podcast started. I mean, the great work that you put together as far as like laying out timeline targets and things that we're going to do and stuff along the way. I mean, that helped us stay on track. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be on time. Same thing with any plan, is making sure you have a good actionable plan that you've written down. You can have it in your mind, but you might get there and totally space and forget. But also the second part that goes along with that is being disciplined and having accountability. Because again, making sure you go to the gym is awesome, but then also being disciplined to write it out, to have all that, and then to really do it and to hold yourself accountable. Because there are times that the alarm's going to go off. You don't feel like getting up in the morning,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to fit it in before work. I mean, I know the times that 4:45 goes off and I do not feel like it, but I have friends I go work out with. I don't want to let them down. But also, I know that if I don't do it in the morning, the odds are when I get home from work, probably not going to happen. So it's being disciplined to say, you know what, I'm going to show up and do it. But also having friends maybe that hold me accountable. But also, I ultimately have to hold myself accountable, because if we can't have the ability to really hold ourselves accountable, we're going to self-justify everything, and we're going to say, "Oh, well, just that was just one day. I'm not. I won't worry. I'll get to it. I'll work out tomorrow." And then tomorrow something else happens, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you haven't worked out for weeks. And I would say the third and final thing is just not being afraid to fail. It is just, if you're trying to get somewhere, just start doing it. And again, like some of these podcasts, who knows how well they're going to land on people, but we're constantly learning and growing how to get better. And if you don't do it, 99% of people never even try. And so can you be the 1% that says, you know what, I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to step out and I'm going to try to do something that I've never done before. So therefore, A, you're learning. B, you're growing because you're learning from your mistakes. You're taking the time to retrospectively look at how you performed. What can you do better? But it's just not being afraid to fail. I think so often now, so many people are afraid because everything's on social media. Everything is about, oh, this person did great and look at all these things. And so people don't ever want to talk about, well, I tried this and I failed, or it didn't go well for me. Or, there's some days you're going to go work out and you're not going to be as strong as you were yesterday. And maybe that'll happen for a couple of days, but then maybe after some recovery and a little bit of time, you make this big leap to this next level that had you not been showing up, even when you weren't doing well, that it never would happen. So just don't be afraid to fail. Just step out and just start doing something is going to stepwise lead to the goal that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Matthew McConaughey did this interview with Chris Williamson, and he said, he can't stand, hedging his bets or kind of going halfway or, just going, oh, well, I might fail, so I'm not going to do it at all. But he said, he's like, that keeps me up at night. I can't live with this whole, like, what if? If you never try, you might try and you might fail. Like, it might not work out. You might go, I want to be a pro, or I want to be a firefighter, or whatever it might be. And, like, it may not work. That's just the reality. Like, most of us did not get exactly what we wanted in life. And for the, chosen few that did, congratulations. I'm happy for you. But it's not realistic. But I think that the thing that, not being afraid to fail, it opens up this whole new blessing of just knowing, like, hey, McConaughey says, like, I got to the other side and I found out, like, this goal, it really wasn't for me, or maybe it really was for me and it was life transforming. But at the very least, you don't live with this feeling of, like, well, what if? Like, you don't have to go to bed at night thinking, well, man, like, what if I just really cared about my family when I was in my 20s or 30s trying to build my career? What if I really invested in my kids? Or what if I really made my goal setting about others in terms of, hey, I want to reach this goal, but I also want to have impact.
And one of the biggest things, again, why this even started in the first place was me having a heart to want to help other men understand what really matters most. And again, the point of all this is what I hope is through this that you become, yes, whether it's a great pro or have a great career at work and make tons of money, fantastic. I hope you do wonderful things with it to help your community and people around you. But ultimately, it's so you don't have the regret of, at the end of your life, looking back and saying, like, I don't have those relationships with my kids that I wish I did. There are too many men that I have met that are in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and they lament the fact that they didn't spend time with their kids when they were younger. They chose to put more time into the work that got them a great status and great paycheck instead of putting time and work into their families. And that's what I want, is ultimately for this to transcend into your families. Even if you're in your teens or 20s, you're going to eventually potentially have a family. You're going to get married. You're going to possibly have kids. And I want nothing more than for you to look back when you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s and not have any regret as far as your relationship with your kids and your family. I mean, it's one of the greatest blessings that we can have is the spouse that we have, the kids that we have, to make them into better humans than we've been, and to help them learn from our mistakes. And ultimately, that is what we're trying to prevent here, is any regret or any missteps that cause problems with your relationships with your kids and your family, because that is where things fall apart first and have the biggest relational generational impact is at home. And so we just really want you to understand why you want to be an amazing spouse or an amazing parent, and help you understand how relationships work and how to actually live those out consistently so that you have an amazing life. Because I know, looking back at my boys being 20 and 19 and the relationships that we have right now, and they're in two different colleges, and my wife and I have an amazing marriage, and at least every other night, if not every night, we have a FaceTime family call, and we get a chance to just chat about the day, things that are going on, and I get calls about different situations and being asked about hard things, and I can't imagine not being there for my kids. I really can't. And if it weren't for me taking the time to say no to things that maybe were good but not really going to be great, that wouldn't have happened. And so ultimately, we want you to understand the impact that you're going to have if you say yes to the really great things, which is, again, being an amazing person that cares deeply about other people, especially your family.
So Chris, thanks so much again for the conversation today. If you're new to You Not Me, you can find us on younotme.com. We have a number of other free resources. Social media, we're on Instagram at chris.behrmann. You can find Chris also on LinkedIn, obviously on YouTube at You Not Me Mindset, and then also on Spotify for this podcast. And then lastly, the Substack newsletter goes out every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and that's the You Not Me letter. The list is getting super long of free resources now, but it's free.
It's wonderful.
It's all free. So thanks for your time. Thanks for listening today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.